We've been listening to Eminem's album wrong? So this past weekend I did a live stream and we listened to the full album from back to front. Unfortunately that live stream's blocked. I'm trying to get it cleared, but it's an over 3-hour live stream. So I think this is a good opportunity just to make a separate video, kind of highlight some of the findings that we had on there. Also look at the specific video that started this whole conspiracy and theory that was being passed around like Skittles on Twitter. So we're going to look at that too. And since then, I've also had a chance to listen to the album fully from front to back. So you front to backers or back to fronters, whatever Karma Sutra position you prefer. Let's dive into this one. All right, so the headline is T-Dos back to front tells a whole different story. We start with Somebody Save Me, which you guys have pointed it out has now been submitted as a single, the third single from this album. We started with Houdini, we had Tobey, and I really like the decision to do Somebody Save Me because I think the back half of Eminem's album, when you get to Temporary, when you get to Somebody Save Me, it feels like a preview of a more mature Eminem, kind of where his music can grow and evolve artistically. Not the regression and battle that we had with SlimShady, which while was amazing for nostalgia, I just feel like M going into his 50s, looking at the future, and it doesn't seem like he's stopping anytime soon. But the big question an artist has to ask themselves is, where do we go from here? And how do we evolve? Look at Nas, for instance. I mean, he's killing it later on in his career. His King's Disease series with Hit Boy has been incredible. And that's like that mature, just self-assured growth and evolution within hip-hop with the sounds and the styles that I think you could see a possible path for Eminem going that way. And he got more raw and he got more personal and it did feel more matured after he killed Shady on Guilty Conscience too. But anyways, let's read this one through and see what we got here. We start with Somebody Save Me foreshadowing Marshall's death. Then Guess Who's Back, the skit, which foreshadows the return of Shady. Now, foreshadowing happened on the front to back as well. A lot of people who claim that, Eminem spitting on Shady's grave, it's actually the other way around. And they're like, why would he start with that? Well, the same argument is used for the back to front theory, right? The foreshadowing is consistent throughout. So if you do it from front to back, he is foreshadowing Shady's death and what he tries to achieve. Those are the key words on Guilty Conscience. Then we go into Tobey. Somebody, shit does not pan out. Shady shadow shows up. Makes sense. Bad one. 1 minute you're here, the next you're gone. It seems like Marsh's job is done. He pulled off his stunt. Temporary, his letter to Haley before he dies. Hint. All right, let's see where we keep progressing with this. I mean, it makes logical sense, and this is kind of what we pointed out on the live stream. Eminem is a very complex writer. There are a lot of meta themes going on throughout this album, right? And it just feels like we're cherry picking lyrics so that we can logically connect it and make it work. And this is what we'll do on the internet. And that's the beauty of it, is that, we will run with narratives and we will just focus on the things which fulfill those narratives and don't necessarily go against it. But there's definitely a good logical flow to this from going from back to front. Head honcho, writing is on the wall, Ezekiel, the story of Ezekiel. I talked about the religious imagery, and then obviously shouting out easy. Marshall's creation day would be SlimShady, you'll be a stand till I die-do. GC2, Guilty Conscience 2 is a turning point for me. Right, SlimShady laughs after Paul hangs up on him, showing it wasn't a dream. Breaking news, SlimShady showing Marshall on the shit he has started. SlimShady begins viciously at the end. Whichever way you want to go with this theory, if you go from back to front or front to back, the pivotal turning point is Guilty Conscience 2. I said this on the live. It's one of the most important tracks on the album. And I think the real reason why you can have such narrative holes is because there are narrative holes to this album. Because even if you listen from front to back, the album is titled The Death of SlimShady, but Guilty Conscience 2 hints with that laugh and shows that it was all a dream, and Eminem even plays on themes after that of alternate timelines and realities. So the whole goal and build-up of the front of the album, this battle, this dichotomy between Shady and this addiction to Shady, and acknowledging that Shady helped to create his career, that the controversy has helped him to grow, that Shady is a part of him like an addiction, but also the acknowledgement that he did struggle with addiction, and that was when he fully embraced Shady. So there's that parallel of being addicted to this persona and this ego that he created, because it goes hand in hand with his success and who he is as an artist today, but also the drug addiction, which almost killed him. And that's where you have the turning point in Temporary and the maturity of Eminem. But see, the whole buildup of that is all about him struggling to let go of Shady. And then Guilty Conscience 2, he finally decides to rid himself of Shady. all to find out that it was fruitless in the end because it didn't happen. He dreamed about it subconsciously. So the whole album is a lie in a sense, but also I think it really sets up for a B-side because Shady is not gone. Shady is not dead. No matter which way you look at it, from back to front or front to back, Shady still lives. I'm afraid. You should be afraid too. Then we have Houdini. Paul calls back and says, good luck. This is his rebuttal to Marshall calling him. He thinks that Marshall is fucking with him because he's on the tangent again. So now we're trying to take it the other way and use the Paul call. Even though like the theme of Paul calling and leaving messages has been a consistent throughout Eminem albums. To me, I thought it was the nostalgia of calling back to that. So it could go either way. I mean, like I said on Guilty Conscience 2, it's interesting because Paul calls before if you go front to back. Right? And he's trying to get Marshall to stop. And then Marshall all of a sudden has this realization that Paul's been telling him for years to stop saying this wild shit and trying to get himself canceled. And that's where Paul is just incredulous and hangs up the phone on him. But hey, it was going the other way. Also, I think Houdini's interesting because Houdini is the first single. And that's foreshadowing for me. Another consistent theme of this foreshadowing, this Houdini. Nothing is what it appears to be. Abracadabra, like pulling a rabbit, B-Rabbit, Slim Shady out of his hat. Abracadabra is foreshadowing the album of illusion, right? The illusion that Shady is dead when he's not truly dead because Eminem doesn't win on Guilty Conscience in the end. B-side is coming, I'm telling you. And then also there was the interview, right, where 50 said he was on the album. We had no 50 Cent feature on this. There was no Royce the 5'9" feature either. I think we're getting more. Road Rage. Slim dyes Marshall's hair blonde again, hence Marshall rapping like a blonde hair version of himself the rest of the way. Well, that's the Shady alter ego that he battles with throughout it. So that makes sense. Fuel, the rappers come into Heathen, I need it for me. Antichrist, Cobain put the gauge to his brain. I'm going out with a bang again. Marshall voice. Lucifer, switching. First I must weave rhymes, then I'm going to leave eyes to a state of disbelief. A setup for the finale of it all. Starts to get really good. I mean, it's not the best laid out in terms of writing. Again, there's a lot of cherry picking of moments here. All you got, Slim telling Marshall he ain't shit without him. Notice Marshall's weariness and tone on this point has completely taken over, hence the opening. Or you could argue, if you're a front to backer, that he's tired of Shady throughout his whole career. Evil. Woke up with an attitude today, not the mood to play, stuck in my ruthless ways. I mean, this is really the crescendo of Shady if you're going the other way, right? This just rises up. Brand new dance when he just trolls the shit out of Christopher Reeves. And then Trouble. All right, here, drink this. Let me go, bitch. Marshall says as he's tied up. Then Shady says, little pussy, what's wrong? Thought you were dreaming, huh? And then obviously this person thinks that they hit a bunch of squares in bingo because they've called it here. And then Habits, you can hear Marshall struggling as he's tied up and gagged. Slim is telling him to eat a pill of some sort to knock him out. I mean, yeah, that still goes from front to back as well. Slim is tied up. Eminem trying to free himself of Shady. This struggle happens, but Shady is winning. Renaissance. This is where it comes back around, isn't it? Slim proceeds to spit his first song without the person that started it all for him, Marshall Mathers. Straight vintage Slim Shady on the track, teasing what's about to be unleashed on the world with side B. And that is Eminem dead and Slim Shady spitting on his grave. It's a fun one. It's a fun course of Inception. I better call up Leonardo DiCaprio. I listen from back to front and then from front to back. And what I will say is from a music making, meta engineering producer perspective, I feel like the album listens better from front to back. And I feel like there was more artistic intention to go from front to back. And the reason I say that is because songs like Temporary, songs like Somebody Save Me, those are very raw, very personal songs that go so into the deep end. Normally when you have an album, it's a journey, right? It's an experience. Those type of songs are not album starters. They're not something you kick off your album with or you run through the intro with. Those are things that, you start off the album strong. A lot of rappers, we like to get lyrical on the front end of the album. You hit them hard with stuff. And then after a few songs in, you gave them some singles, you gave them that hip hop. Maybe you start to switch it up a little bit. That's when you start to experiment. And then as the album progresses, like midway through or even later on, that's when sonically it sets up for great moments and points to do those very raw, very personal songs. Temporary does not feel like it's a song, it's an early song on an album. Neither does Somebody Save Me. Those definitely feel like later songs. And what I will say is the intro is very important, right? Somebody Save Me as an intro doesn't make as much sense sonically as Renaissance. Renaissance is that typical Eminem barring out. He's teasing us. He's giving that nostalgic, shady feel that we've gotten on a number of Eminem intro songs to start an album. I just think there's more fluidity from front to back. But what's fun about this is, again, the way that he's written this so cleverly, and he's also left these glaring holes of not truly defeating Shady. We're all confused. That's why people are debating. That's why you have front to back or back to front, because he's made it purposefully confusing about who's truly in control, because he's still confused and he's still conflicted and fighting Shady and his demons throughout the album, and he doesn't know what's real and what isn't with these dream sequences and just that fluidity of the alarm clock ringing throughout it and those little moments of foreshadowing, which sets up perfectly for a side B. I think what all of us can agree on, no matter which way you want to listen to this album, is there's got to be more. There has to be another sequel to this, because we are not yet finished. And Houdini planted the seeds of that illusion. But anyways, what do you guys think? Listen, at this point, I don't think you're wrong either way. Listen to the album how you want to listen to it. Whichever way you enjoy it, then do that. I know there's a number of people that, they love classic Shady. So for them, they love listening to the album from back to front because it ends so strong for them in that Shady Eminem mode. But comment down below. Let me know what you guys think, kind of how you feel about this, what you've been enjoying, what your favorite songs are, and which way we're going. And listen, I will see you guys for side B. All right, I got more work to do. Got more shows to get ready for. Catch you again soon.